Welcome to Focus. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another session of Focus on Liberia on the Marketplace, where we talk everything finance and economics. I am your co-host, Gabriel Carter. I have my co-host in the studio with me, Alex Coffee. Alex, welcome
Yes,
to another session of Focus on Liberia. How are you?
I'm good. Gabriel, I'm good. Except that we're caught up in between watching the World Cup
Yeah,
and then also about doing this show. So we agree that our time will remain the same because the World Cup is going to end by the 18th of December,
yep,
and then
yep,
live will
yep,
continue. So there's no need to adjust our time. So we can compete with the World Cup. Yes, just 30 minutes of the
yep,
World Cup time.
yeah.
Yeah. So
It's
welcome
one
everybody.
it's 1-1 by the way.
Okay, 1-1. I
Yeah,
guess
1-1 by
I
the
guess
way.
I
Who
guess
you're
I
rooting
guess
for? Who you're rooting for?
actually I'm rooting for France.
Oh, okay. If
Yeah,
you weren't rooting for France, I'll come to call you right now and take you off the show.
yeah. I ain't get time for any of them, but right
Yep,
now I'm rooting for France. My team now is the African Arab team Morocco.
yep. I'm with you.
We hope. I
We're,
mean,
we're in line.
already reached. At least they reached the semifinal, and we're hoping that they will beat Argentina. Is that no?
Yeah,
They will beat whoever comes from here,
yeah, yeah,
from
yeah,
the
yep.
England and France game, and then they will. Hope, we're keeping our fingers crossed that at least an African team will go beyond the semifinals because we already qualified for the semifinals now. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but
No, I think. Go ahead.
yeah, once again, welcome to everybody. We know we are competing with the World Cup, but we'll keep dragging this thing for a little bit until the game today is over, and eventually the World Cup is over, so that we can return to normal. Today we'll be talking about the economics of identification.
Yes.
Um, yes, that's the topic for the day. Identification, meaning countrywide identification. Last Saturday we talked about Liberia's identification system. We had Josh K. Famula and Isaac Va Tokba here. Josh Famula will be joining us in a little bit.
Hmm.
And then Mr. Tokba, Ava Tokba is engaged today. So we'll be talking to Mr. Famula today when it comes to the whole economics behind the whole identification
Identity.
system. Yeah, why should a country? Yes, last Saturday we talked about why should a country have an identification system, all right? And then we were able to talk about the Liberia has the National Identification Registry, which is largely not being allowed to do its job.
Hmm.
We were able to identify that typically, according to the law of the National Identification Registry, other entities should feed off that identification system.
Hmm.
But it looks like entities are competing in Liberia. You got the National Election Commission that's doing biometric. You have the other institutions that are doing identification. Meanwhile, the thing is they're supposed to feed off the national identification system.
Hmm.
So that is something that we discussed last Saturday. And now we will be discussing the economics. What's the money business? But in the meantime, while we wait for George, Gabriel,
Yeah.
the World Cup is on. Let's talk something about the World Cup. I'm happy that Morocco has qualified for the semifinals.
Yeah.
At least Morocco is representing us, Africa, and as well as the Arab world, because this is the
Arab.
first African and Arab nation that has qualified for the semifinals ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is history for those two worlds, the African world and the Arab world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But what is behind this whole World Cup business when it comes to money? What's the economics? What is at stake here?
Yeah, and there's nowhere else to talk about this but on the show, right? Because this is what
Mhm.
we do. FIFA itself is a, how do you call it? What we call a juggernaut. A juggernaut meaning this is I won't say conglomerate, but it's a very lucrative business. Football is a lucrative business, and the I think you and I were talking about this before we even came on air. There's a lot of money involved just this year alone, right? FIFA is tend to bring in terms of revenue 4.7 billion. That's billion with a B, right?
Mhm.
And that's part of that money comes from their marketing rights, and part of that part of that comes from marketing. Part of that also comes from TV rights. That how those other TV stations can show games, whether in the U.S., in Europe, in Africa. They make money off of that. So in total, they bring in 4.7 billion. They will bring in 4.7 billion this year. And I think you and I were talking about the breakdown of that, which I think you have. So if you can go in details of that. So these teams that play at the World Cup, they're not just playing because they want to, they want to represent this country. There's money involved as well. So, and I think we'll cover some of that as well as we go. Right. While we wait for George. Right.
Yeah, so I was reading and I see that the economics of the World Cup has
Yeah.
different facets, right?
Hmm.
Uh, I, under, I understand that in when the World Cup was held in Russia,
Hmm.
Russia that is now doing all this war stuff with Ukraine,
Hmm.
they generated about $7.5 billion
Hmm.
from what I read
Hmm.
in commercial deals.
That's in the country,
Yes, in the different
in
commercial
Russia.
deals.
Russia.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. This all the different the one we were talking about, all the different advertisement, all the different commercial deals that went on. They generated about 7.5 billion dollars.
Hmm.
But there is also job creation, right?
Hmm.
A job creation emanating from the stadium, all the different stadium that they're constructing, all the different aspect, everything that goes on with the World Cup during that period before the World Cup itself. There's construction going on. There's different things going on.
Hmm.
People are employed in that process, and during the
Hmm.
World Cup itself, people are also employed to do different things. So
Right.
that could generate at least $1.5 million in terms of job creation. Then they come to the profitability, the different business that it creates for all the different facets of the economy that
Right.
play a role in whether it is information system, whether it's broadcasting, whether it
Right.
is different things that in the hotels, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of profit. People, it's tourism by itself. People
Yeah.
pouring into that country. Um, of course, what and the money that they make in terms of the gate intakes and stuff like that. But the
Yeah.
other things, the other hospitality activities that
Hmm.
go around the entire World Cup, it's a big money making stuff for everybody. As it seems, with election is a money making thing. World Cup is a money making thing as well
Hmm.
in that light. So, but
Yeah.
the countries that take part in the World Cup also there's an incentive for them to take part. There's money that goes around each country that takes part in the World Cup,
Hmm.
right? Now, from what I read, um, the 32 countries that go into the World Cup, each country is guaranteed, but the money is staggered, right?
Hmm.
So each country is guaranteed a minimum of $9 million,
Hmm.
right? So you are guaranteed a minimum.
Hmm.
So of the 32 countries that go in the after the first round, the round robin,
Yeah.
right? Those 16 countries that are eliminated, they go with 9 million
Hmm.
each.
Yeah.
Each of them go with 9 million. Then the countries that go for this round 16,
Hmm.
all right, those that are knocked out, those 8 teams that are knocked out in the round 16,
Right.
they each get 13 million. So it's not like they get 9 million in the first round and they get 13 million. No, those 16 teams that are knocked out that leave the first round are disqualified. I mean, that don't go to the round 16, they go with 9 million. Then those countries that are knocked out in the round 16, they go with 13 million.
Right.
All right. And so the
In
countries
addition to their first 9 million.
no, that's not what I read.
Okay. Anyway, go ahead.
Not in addition, you just get 13 million.
13 million.
So if you are knocked out in the first round, you get 9 million.
Okay.
If you are knocked out in the round 16, you get 13 million.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And then so for those countries, I mean, it would be good that as soon as you show face, you get, I mean, someone educate me on that. As soon as you take part, you get your first 9 million. And then when you go for the round 16, you get another 13 million.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the fourth runner, the 4 teams that go for the semi-final, the ultimate winner gets 42 million.
Yeah.
So the second place winner gets 30 million.
Mm-hmm.
The third place winner gets 27 million, and the fourth place winner gets 25 million. So as it stands now, Morocco is getting at least 25 million.
That's huge.
Yeah. So I would be amazed if Morocco got the first 9 million, 13 million, and then another million before the 25 million. I would be amazed, but I don't think they dish the money like that.
Yeah.
I think it's just the 25 million. So if Morocco takes the third place, but I'm rooting for Morocco to take the first place, to win.
Wow, that's I mean, from an African, I think I agree with you, but that's quite an ambitious hope and dream to put on them. Now, I won't doubt them because they have played as a team. They don't have a lot of star players on that team. They have played as a team, and they continue to surprise, all of us. So if they make it to the final, that would be a sight to behold. And I agree with you. I can't put that beyond them. I think they're well capable enough to make it to that level. So, but that would be a quite difficult feat to achieve. So, but coming to the money part. So, given so and this is why people see the level of excitement, the level of what I call enthusiasm these countries play with. It's not just also about the money. It's also about bragging rights. It's also about FIFA itself. Before Sepp Blatter, or whatever you call his name, Seth. I like what he was doing with the organization. Besides the corruption that plagued that organization, I like his ideology, his strategy, that what he was doing with FIFA. I mean, the World Cup, right? And I think this is, especially in the kind of world where we live in, that level of unity is needed. And he was using FIFA to bring unity to different regions. And this is why you saw FIFA, the World Cup was held in South Africa, it's held in Brazil. It was 94, it was held in the USA here. It was taken to Russia out of all places. Now, when you look at the media, everything that besides this Ukraine war, even before the Ukraine war, everything about Russia was negative, but they didn't care. They saw they weren't feeding into the politics of it. They were looking at the unity that football has to bring to a region, right? And we saw it now. It's being held in Qatar. That's like the whole Arab nations.
The whole Arab world,
the whole Arab nation. And there's rumor that he's even contemplating bringing that to North Korea. Now, from you and I, if we look at that aspect of it, we'll say, oh, why North Korea? Why North Korea? They're sanctioned, they're doing this. But it's not about that. It's the unity that they're trying to use sport to bring unity to humanity. And for me, that's the biggest thing that I love about this sport. It has the ability to unite. And as we often said, this is the biggest unifier. So I like what he does with it. Besides the money and the corruption that was there. I mean, we can get into that whole politics of it, why they want to take over, FIFA and control it. But, that's part of the reason, is an influential tools. If you can influence football, you can influence an entire nation. 2 billion people watch the game so far. So that should tell you, So, yeah, I'll leave it right there.
Yeah, well, a whole country can vote for a footballer to be the leader
to be
of
president. Are you throwing jabs?
No, I'm not throwing jabs. I'm saying how much
Yeah.
the football has so much power,
Yes, it
right?
does.
The unity, the popularity. Because if you look at the story of George Weah, um, he also, as a football player at the time when
Mhm.
Liberia was going through its crisis, I mean, he was the only light, as you know, as the football as an international football player.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was the
Exactly.
only light. The best thing that was happening to Liberia at the
At the
time
time was him.
Liberia was
Yeah.
going through crisis. I was in I was based in Ghana, working in West Africa, around working with PwC,
Yeah.
PricewaterhouseCoopers, West Africa at the time. So I was traveling to all these different countries in West Africa, and I saw how much enthusiasm people had for a Liberian citizen once you identify yourself as a Liberian, and it was all about Joshua. Joshua, you receive this rare carpet treatment, and the kind of role that he also played with, helping us in addition to everybody else,
Yeah.
helping us to bring peace to our nation. So football is a unifier, and that is why in Liberia the county meet and all that stuff is intended, even though there's a whole lot of politics that is played into it,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's intended. So I'm just trying to buttress your point that
Yeah.
football has so much unifying power. So I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, if it goes to North Korea, it would be a good thing, because in as much as it could go to Russia, if it goes to North Korea, it will be a good thing. But with
Yeah.
the intent that it will galvanize, it will change the trajectory of the country in terms of,
Exactly.
yeah,
Right.
what is
Right.
doing, and all the hidden stuff that is being done to the citizens and things like
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it will open the country up, but it didn't start.
Politics will come in.
Yeah,
Right.
but it didn't start Russia from invading or trying to invade
Exactly.
Ukraine.
You can put that aside. We can get into that. I think the guest is here, so let's.
Mhm.
I think.
But
Um.
Emmanuel Jackson says that he's watching the game, the football game, and listening to us at the same time. Sir Francis Tamba says Morocco is going to the final. Morocco will beat England or France flat out. And Patrick Kennedy says he prayed Morocco may reach the final, but they need to defeat Argentina in the finals.
What
Um,
I would say one thing, right? There's the thing about us African, we support each other. When it comes to football, at least from that level,
mhm.
I wish we can do it with everything else concerning the economics of that continent. If we can do the way we unify behind each other when it comes to sport, if we can do the same thing when it comes to the economics and the unity and the progression of that continent, it would, there's so much more we can do. But that's yeah.
Is Morocco playing Argentina in the semifinals? I thought Morocco is
Yes.
playing, or
Yes.
is
So
Croatia? I thought Morocco
no,
is playing. Who is playing the winner
Who's
from?
playing Croatia?
Wait, let me see the games here. But who played this morning? Okay, Morocco won. Morocco should play the winner
the
from
winner
England.
from here. Yeah,
Yeah,
the winner for the current game. Morocco
yeah.
playing the winner for the current game. Yeah. So, George, Mr.
Yes,
Famula,
sir.
welcome. Welcome. We were waiting for you, so we say, what? Let's kill time and jump into the economics of football since the game is currently on. So that's what you caught us doing. But
Fantastic.
again, thank you for taking the time to come back and let's talk about my favorite piece about this whole identification, the economics of identification.
Okay.
So
Yeah, before you go on, Argentina is playing Croatia
right,
on Tuesday at 1 p.m. and Morocco is playing the winner from
from here.
today's France and England
Yeah,
on Wednesday at 1 p.m.
boy, oh
Eastern
boy.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
perfect. Can't
actually,
wait.
no, it's 1 p.m. Central Time is my time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Welcome, Josh.
Well, glad to be here. So let's talk about the economics of
Yes.
identification.
Yes. So
Okay.
when you guys were here last week, you talk about the whole structural aspect of it and how it has been, what we call, for lack of a better term, decentralized, where it's fragmented and it's all of that. I think what you kept, repeating is that it is done because of the amount of money that is attached to it for each entity doing their own identification. There's money, and
Correct.
I think you advocated also for that process being centralized in one place, which I agree with you. I think that, correct me here, I think that was your recap. So from that now,
That exactly was my recap.
right. So from
And,
that now, we
and
want to
Gilbert,
look
that is the
at,
law. That's the law.
right, that is the law, but we're not
Mhm.
following the law. So from that point, we want to look at the economics of it. So,
So
yeah.
one of the things we have to understand about government
Mhm.
is that things in government don't work in a vacuum.
Mhm.
They don't work in individual silos. So if you're going to have this identity piece and you're going to deploy it correctly, the next thing is, what are you going to use it for?
Mhm.
So one of the things you're going to do is you are going to attach assets to identity.
Yes.
Okay. As soon as you begin to attach assets and liabilities to identity,
Mhm.
then you can do two things. You can transition your economy from a cash economy to a credit economy.
Mhm.
And when you talk about so now you're looking at exponential growth in your economy.
Right.
So let's take the scenario where I want to start a transportation company and I
Right.
want to have taxis or buses.
Mhm.
And a bus costs $50,000.
Yep.
Well, the only way to get a bus right now is to have $50,000
Yep. Currently. Yeah.
currently. But if we were a credit-based economy, $50,000 and a system to rate people for credit,
Yep.
I could buy 5 buses.
Mhm.
So the question, what does that mean? I could now buy 5 buses. That means that I've spent $250,000. The government has collected taxes on $250,000.
Yep.
Even if the taxes are 5%, that's 12. That's 12 $12,500. Even if I have to hire 4 people to operate each bus, I've now hired 20 people
Mhm.
who will be paying into the tax system.
Yep.
So if you look at it, but now we've only looked at one person and what they could do if we had a credit-based system. Let's talk about tying that into a property system where you can see who either one or multiple people who own a piece of property.
Yep.
This means that people can reliably conduct transactions on a piece of property and know that the person that they're conducting the transaction is the actual owner. So what
Yeah.
happens there when you can do it across the if you can do it across the board?
Millions of people. Right. Right.
Okay. And so you're talking about, because now people will be able to buy and sell property more frequently,
Mhm.
that means that you would create a demand for property.
Yep.
When you create that property demand, what's going to happen? The value of property is going to go up.
Mhm.
Okay. So now you have property values increasing, and it means that if you can put in place a mortgage system, the guy who wanted to buy the 5 buses before, the value of his property has increased, and he actually has $100,000 in equity in his property.
Mhm.
He can tap into that equity and go and buy 5 more buses.
Absolutely.
Okay. So when we talk about the growth of the economy, if you look at the US economy, when housing slows down, everything slows down.
Mhm.
Okay, so Percy Harris says, do it with market women. Market women have to buy goods to sell.
Right.
What if they're, we had LPRC, right?
Mhm.
That was supposed to be some sort of central clearinghouse for produce and things like that.
Mhm.
Well, if we had a reliable credit-based system where we could identify every market woman, then they don't necessarily have to sell all their goods before they can buy more goods.
Right.
I think you meant to say LPMC.
LPMC, I'm sorry,
Right.
LPMC,
Yeah.
right.
LPMs.
But
Right.
they don't have to sell all their goods before they can buy more goods. So maybe they don't even sell in only one market. Maybe now they can sell in 2 different markets because they can get credit.
Yeah, so Formula, Mr. Formula, I'm listening to you, but I'm kind of like disconnected here. So I hear you talking about the mortgage system, the market women, but how do you connect identification system or individual system to what you're saying?
Okay, so let me give you an example. You have a social security number, right?
Yes, I do.
You have a bank account.
Yes, I do.
Your bank account's connected to your social security number.
So it's my phone number.
No, it's your social security number.
Yep.
It's your social security number.
Yep.
You apply for a credit card, right?
Mm-hmm.
That credit card is connected to your social security number. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Every month, you can get a credit report. What does that credit report tell you? It tells you this is how much available credit you have, this is how much credit you have used, and this is how you've paid your debt over time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And they have a scoring system. But all of that is predicated on you having that single identifier. Okay? Percy Harris's credit will never show up on your credit report. It's unique to him. Okay? So now, even if you went to buy a car, it will be tied to your social security number.
Mm-hmm.
And when they pull your credit report, they will see these are your credit cards, these are your automobile loans, these are your homeowner loans. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's how it's tied together. But without that identifier, the only way people can get credit is by who know you.
Right.
Okay.
Well, by the way, France scored the second goal.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, we're going. That is.
Patrick Kennedy was just informing us here that
Okay.
Oliver Giroud scored the second goal in the 79th minute. But let's continue. Okay. I'm sorry for interrupting.
So, when you're doing these types of transactions by who know you, the number of people that know each other is very small.
Yeah.
And it's not large enough to support the economy.
But how does the identification, how does my social security number or my identity number in Liberia erase the who know you in getting credit?
But this is what we're talking about. So what we would do is every bank account would have to have a social security number.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay. Every loan for an automobile would have to be attached to a social security number.
Mm-hmm.
Every car that's registered would have to be attached to a social security number. Every piece of property would have to be attached to one or more social security numbers.
Your medical record, your
correct,
your school, your.
So that's so now you could have a credit bureau that essentially acts as a central clearinghouse for information on people. You go to the bank and you say, listen, I need to borrow $10,000 to buy a motorcycle or a pen. They punch in your social security number. They'll say, okay, you got a loan from these people, and on that loan you owe, you still owe so many dollars.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, or you overextended, and you're a bad credit risk. So that's how being able to tie that social security number into assets, to assets and liabilities like loans. That's how you develop that credit system that allows people to essentially buy more with less.
Absolutely.
They still get paid.
Mhm.
Okay, you will still pay for the car, but now you're paying for it over 5 years. Let me give you another
Yeah,
another piece.
George.
So let's take
Okay.
the diaspora people, right?
Okay.
That we want to recruit.
Yeah.
Right now, you have a housing problem in Liberia.
Mhm.
Liberia can't handle 40,000 people from the diaspora moving to Liberia.
Mhm.
They just can't. The other thing is, you're not going to ask somebody who is leaving the diaspora to cash out their entire retirement, $300,000, and go and buy one piece of property in Liberia.
Mhm.
Okay? But suppose you had a mortgage system that says that person has to put down $30,000 and pay $800 a month
Mhm.
for a 30-year mortgage.
Yeah.
Now, the cost of that person transitioning from the US to Liberia is not a problem.
Yeah.
So these are the type of hindrances that we're talking about.
Mhm.
If you look at countries like Costa Rica, you look at Mexico, you look at Thailand, they have a huge recruitment for American retirees.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
These people have guaranteed income.
Yeah.
Okay, come here. It's cheaper here.
Yeah.
Come and spend your money here. So you take a retired couple that's getting about, say, $3,000 a month, and they can live comfortably in Thailand for $1,800.
Mhm.
Okay, they're going to spend that money in Thailand. You figure it out over 10,000 Americans spending $300 every month. I mean, $3,000 every month.
Yeah.
That's a lot of millions of dollars.
No, I do agree. I do agree with you, and I think, you know, without, it's a whole segment of this that I you know, I wanted us to dive into now that you've got that fundamental down pack, that, you know, in order to build a market economy, you need credit, right? That credit allow people to use, you know, money, like you said, live, buy things on credit, you know, instead of, like you said, somebody
Mhm.
spending an entire $50,000 on a car when they can put $5,000 down and finance the rest. Even if they had that $50,000, they could use that other 45,000 to do other things and you know, grow their business or expand their business or whatever it is. Um, so there's a, what I call an elasticity effect to it. You know, now you look at that, one person doing that, now you multiply that, let's say 500,000 people, or 1 million or 2 million or 3 million people, Liberian, doing that, creating jobs, businesses in our country. That's another way to grow the economy, right? That's another
So,
way to create, to grow the economy and add jobs and bring jobs in the economy.
so,
Correct?
so let's talk about what I just raised about the expats living in Thailand.
Right.
There are 40,000 Americans living in Thailand.
40,000. Wow.
In addition to that 40,000 Americans, there are 85,000 Brits.
In there.
Okay, there are 80,000 Japanese, 46,000 Indians.
What's going on in Thailand?
They can live cheap. They
Yeah,
can live cheap.
right,
So
right.
no, but just let's just do this little exercise so we can see that if we were recruiting Liberians and Americans to come and retire in Liberia,
Mhm.
if you have stable property prices, if people have access to credit, okay, we're talking about almost 300,000 people in Thailand. If each of those 300,000 people spent $2,500 a month,
Mhm.
that's $750 million.
Yeah.
A month, not a year. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
$750 million that's being pumped into the local economy. So even if you said you were doing just 100,000, you're looking at $250 million a month,
Mhm.
every month.
Which is almost half of our budget, or maybe a third of
But that's just a month.
right.
That's
Right?
just a month,
There you
yeah.
go. That's
That's just a
right.
month.
Now you multiply that over 12.
But
Correct.
that number sounds impressive. What are you talking about that?
He's looking at the
I'm talking about
expat,
retirees.
right, in Thailand.
Retirees in Thailand,
Okay.
they have over 300,000 retirees living in Thailand. And I'm saying if each of them is spending $2,500 a month.
But we did that for our retirees, didn't we?
Yes. And
Well,
so that's what I'm saying. If we just did 100,000,
My man, I
see,
think we
if
gotta start looking at talent so we can go look for retirement job on it.
but if our goal, right, was to recruit 100,000 retirees in the next 5 years,
Right.
and each of them are going to spend $2,500.
Right.
That's the number.
You bring the number down. You bring the number down to 1,500. Most people probably their social security is probably 2,000 or 2,500. We assume they're not going to spend all. They spend 1,500 a month. 20,000 of those people are 1,500 a month.
Mhm.
In 1 year's time, what we get? Several $1 million in our economy. Because each of the people got like 5 persons that they got to employ close to a minimum. They got a cook, they got a security, they got a houseboy, they got the driver, and they probably got like somebody who do their little 1-2 running around, because most people will not stand a hectic running around in Liberia.
20,000 times 1,500 is 30 million
Monthly.
monthly.
So how we multiply that by 12 months?
You're talking about 360 million.
360 million.
This is all private sector money.
That's almost almost a third of our budget.
And then there's a multiplier effect.
Right.
All those people got kids. Okay.
So Emmanuel Jackson is saying one of the major hindrances facing Liberia is the poor performance of the banking sector, non-performing loans. And this is exactly what we're talking about. You have to be able to tie lending to identification. You have to be able to tie property.
But today in Liberia, identification for those bad non-performing loans not a problem because those are schemes. They know the people, especially with the LBDI situation. They know very well who's borrowing, okay? And they use the borrowing as a means to say their lifestyle is not being based on stealing money from government. Then at the same time, they don't pay those loans that they take from LBDI, and then they come back to government to subsidize LBDI and keep LBDI in business. So that's triple dipping they're doing against the Liberian people.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you know, Emmanuel, I'm not sure if you caught what we were talking before. Okay, what we were talking about before. The whole
man,
idea.
To church, let him be quiet.
We have to.
No,
We have to tie property to individuals.
Right.
We have to be able to register property in a way that is irrefutable.
And that's what brings the question up, right? What is the collateral that these non-performing loans were granted on? And why there's no seizure of these properties?
Right. And
it's a scheme.
Even to look at this from a broader standpoint, right? As I want to expand on what you're saying in terms of the collateral aspect of it, right? One thing I've kept asking people, whether we do have a specific collateral system in Liberia. And people said, what we hear is they were developing something like that. They never really finished it. So now it's pretty much, we don't have a way to track somebody collateral. So let's say you have your property, you want to use maybe somebody.
You put yourself on mute?
Can you guys hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Okay. So let's say you want to use some of the equity in our property to borrow money, right? Now, whatever bank you go to, they will put a lien on that property.
But here's the thing. Here's the problem with that. Here's the problem.
I think George mentioned that the last time. Yeah.
Here's the problem you run into. Only that bank that you're dealing with has a record of that lien.
That's what I'm saying now, right? So let me land what I was saying. If you do, right, whoever has the second lien property on that, even if you had it with a bank that George owned, if he came to my bank, I will be able to see that this property that Ava brought to me, George has a second lien on it. George's bank has a second lien on it. So what I can do, I can get in second lien position, right? That's because it is on a what we call universal collateral core system, which what we have in the United States. So regardless,
you got a bigger problem,
right?
You got a bigger problem,
right?
You got a much bigger problem. Here's the bigger problem,
right?
The bigger problem is.
Oh, George, let him finish. Let him finish.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm able to see that, right? And if I'm able to see that, I'm able to assess the amount of loan I want to give to Ava specifically, knowing how much George owns on it and how much is left after George first lien position is taken out, right? We don't have that in the country.
Okay.
Right.
So let me tell you, before you get to that core lending infrastructure, you know what you can't show? You know what you can't show? You can't guarantee that I own that property.
That's what I'm saying. So that's one of the biggest problems.
So you have to be, the first thing you have to be able to do is to guarantee the ownership of the property.
Yep.
Voila.
And that's why we talk about property registration.
I said identification, individual identification. You
asset
got to have
identification. Because even here in the US, when you go to borrow or buy a property, you are not the person responsible to present the loan. They're the property documents.
Right.
Okay. The bank can find out everything it needs to find out about that property.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that information that is held by your county, because it's done on a county to county basis.
It is. Yep.
Okay. But the bank can find out, it can find out who owns the property. You can find out what loans exist on the property. Okay. And once it can do that, the bank can say, okay, we're going to fund this loan for you, but we know that Iva owes $70,000 to another bank.
Right.
He's a seller. We're going to pay his loan off and then pay him whatever's left. They will not give Iva the money and say, you go and pay off your loan.
Right.
Okay. So the first thing we have to do is to be able to legitimately establish ownership. The guy who says profiling Liberia, he says that's not true. The CBL has established data for all borrowers. That is it's a weak system.
Is
Okay.
CBL cannot establish borrow for a system for all borrowers.
And even if they can, they have no way of establishing who owns a piece of property that something is lent on. The trouble that you have is mortgages in Liberia are no more than 5 years. They require a 40% down payment, and you have to pay in 5 years. And the reason is that
the interest rate
Right.
is kind of predatory as well.
It's not necessarily, it's not predatory, Isaac, and here's the problem. They're pricing the risk.
Right.
They are pricing the risk.
Yeah. Because it's
Okay.
riskier.
If I'm going to lend you money and I'm not, and I cannot be 100% sure that you own that property, I want to get out as quickly as possible.
Okay, so if you factor in the risk of ownership, yeah, but because they actually have the property, even though they take the main property, somebody else can come and say that I got a mother deed for that property.
That's part of the risk.
And guess what? And in Liberia, land carries house.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So you lent me that I lent him that money for that house. I will not inside your business when you're talking. The house on my land, it belongs to me. And the man owe you money, let him pay you the money you owe you. That's essentially the law.
So George, let me come in a little bit. I decided to listen. You are the guest, but my question is still on my mind. The identification system that we are talking about, you try to connect it to the loan process, the car ownership, the property ownership process, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm still looking for that connect and that disconnect. By disconnect, I mean, what is not having an identity system cost us, for example, in Liberia?
Everything.
Okay, so let me finish.
Okay. What is the economic benefit that we're not having now that we could have, economic benefit that we could have if we had a proper identification system? The reason why I'm asking the question and supporting what Profiling Liberia is saying, when I was in Liberia, I took loan on a number of occasions in acquiring properties and stuff like that. Okay. Now, I remember one time I wanted a loan on 2 occasions, actually. One of the times I wanted a loan, my credit report, my Liberia credit report came out and said, "Oh, my friend, you have a problem at LBDI." My problem was I had an account at LBDI that I have forgotten altogether. And they charge the fees every month, the monthly fees. And that monthly fee put that account in overdrive by, I think, $254, if I quite remember the figure. And because of that $254 overdraft, that is why I was not getting a loan. So I had to go to LBDI. Then when they gave me the report, they said, "Oh, you have this problem at LBDI." I was taking this move from another bank altogether. So your credit report from the credit reporting system that was being created at the central bank report came back and said, "Hey, you have this issue." So I had to go and pay that money, clear out, straighten up my credit before I came back.
Okay. So let me ask you this question.
On another occasion, because my wife and myself were co-signing for another loan, she could not individually get a loan, a business loan, because we had taken a personal loan that we're still paying on.
Okay.
And
so let me ask you this question, Alex.
Pay that loan off. So what I'm saying is there's something to support what Profiling is saying. There's something that exists in Liberia,
but it doesn't scale.
Let George
It doesn't
say that.
scale. It doesn't scale.
So,
Because for you, Alex.
Can I answer that question when George finished?
Okay, for you, Alex, you had a national ID that you were forced to get because of your job.
It was before the national ID even came in.
Okay, so then it was based on who know you. You had to carry letters of credentials.
Let me say what it was.
That process is tedious.
So let me say what it was.
You can't do it for 4 million, for 2 million people. You simply can't.
So, it was not based on credential.
That system,
it has nothing to do
guys,
with credential.
that system is called the check system within banking. I work in banking, from the retail up to commercial risk. It's called the check system. So every bank has it. That's how the bank communicate with each other. That one has nothing to do with your identity. So let's say you deposit money here, you deposit your money in this bank, and you leave that account, and we end up charging fee. That account go overdraft. If you go open an account somewhere else, it will show up that this Alex owed TD Bank or Bank of America's money that he didn't pay. So they will send you that. They will tell you specifically, you owe TD Bank money, go pay it off. And when you come, we'll do that. So it's called the check system. That's what they do. So the moment you go open your account, they call it check system. They use that they will run your OFAC too. What is even a simple deposit, they'll run OFAC on you and they run the check system. So that's what it was. That's how the bank communicate with each other. So I think that's what those banks use.
Right. So it still doesn't mean Alex is properly identified. Alex,
that's what I'm saying. It does.
What if you have taken that loan at LBDR or that account at LBDR? Suppose you have been in and let's say your middle name is Nimenu and Coffee. They will know that you? No, because you opening that account just based on you presenting yourself with no unique identification. So they may have established data, like he said, but is that data uniquely identifying each?
It's not reliable.
It is not exactly. That's the point we're making
here.
Right.
So that is what I'm asking the question: that what is the drawback on not having the proper identification, and what is the benefit of having the? Can you link that? Because what I'm saying is that
the drawback is the number of people that you can identify uniquely with a number is infinite. The number of people named Flomo Colley from Lofa, you may have 40 of them. You don't have any way to distinguish this Flomo Colley from the other Flomo Colley.
And let's assume there was another Alex Coffee, and they have said, and that was that your loan, and that was that person loan, and they're telling you got to go clear that before
because the name is the same.
For you,
what are you going to do?
You would have to go and prove that you are not that Alex Coffee. That number says that only one Alex Coffee can have this number. My son and I have the same name. We live at the same address. We have completely different credit profiles.
Right.
So
you understand what I'm saying?
Let's link this thing to the topic, the economics of identification system. What is the okay? So what will improve? I know we don't have a proper identification system yet. It's in the process with the NIR, the National Identification Registrar, and there's all these little confusion with all these silos of identification system created by different entities, NEC and National Election Commission, and everywhere else. What will we tend to benefit if we do this? If we have a proper identification system?
What we'll be able to do is we'll be able to expand the credit available in the country to people.
Okay. Credit.
So that one thing that Alex Coffey did, the loans that you did, we can now do it 10, 20 times over. Because we can identify people uniquely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ava.
Okay? Yeah. So we can extend credit. When we extend credit, it's not just we are handing out money. The credit that's being extended is being used to do things. It's being used to buy things. It's being used to build things that have value.
And then
we're not lending money for people to go on a drinking bench.
Right.
And that identification process, when it comes to asset identification too, it automatically gives value to that asset that tied to that individual who owns the asset. So you can borrow against your asset and be able to utilize that for business, or even if you buy in locally, you stay impacting the economy, right? And then it enhance that along with technology that gives everybody the level of transaction transparency that's required for you to move the economy forward. For somebody to say, look, I'm getting this, you can track your demographics by that. I'm getting this volume of business from this amount of people with this kind of spending potential. I'm able to borrow money to expand the business because the potential is there. So your business case, in terms of your business plan and strategy, can expand for everybody. And then
But
once, go ahead.
Yeah, let's look at for me the big driver is always housing. Let's look at housing and say we build 10 houses for $200,000 each. That's $2 million worth of houses. If we're waiting for people to come and buy those houses in cash, it may take us 3 years to sell those houses. It may take us 5 years. If we have a credit system, those people can buy those houses with $20,000 down and pay for the houses over a 20, 30-year period. Now, it just seems like, some fantastic thing. But let's think about what goes into each house. You have to put carpet. You have to paint. You have to put tile. You have to put bathroom fixtures. You have to put refrigerators. You have to put maybe dishwashers. Okay? You have to do lighting. You have to do roofing.
Josh, all that when you're talking about identification system, don't put roofing on the house. Don't put.
Yes, it does.
So that's why he's making a link now.
That's the link you asked me to make.
Once you establish that, this is it.
Once you establish that and you can lend people money, they're going to now be able to buy houses at a much faster rate than they were buying houses before.
Businesses, right?
Okay,
and buy a house, it will not be empty. You got to buy things to fill the house. So
you got to buy furniture. Okay, so you have this significant multiplier effect for each house you sell, because you're impacting multiple sectors of the economy.
Right.
So because that identity, Alex, expands credit. That's what expands the economy.
Yeah. So if I may add to this, right? So the way, and this has been my qualms with the whole Liberia economy. The way the economy is grown, money is made in any country, is liquidity, right? Alex, you had mentioned earlier that, I don't know if it was Alex or somebody mentioned earlier that the reason why the banks don't extend you loan for a lot of time, because of the risk, right? The risk being also, then they want to just come out, make their quick buck for what is a year, 2, 3 year, 5 year tops, and get out. If we had that, let's say, I want to look at it from a different side. If we have credit system or identification problem, you know what this will do? The liquidity problem that even the central bank and the commercial banks and all those banks that are having, it will solve some of that problem. How? So the way money is made in a country is through businesses, right? So let's say you, Alex, have Ale Bernard International. You have I always like to use your company, Ale Bernard International. You have a business in Liberia, right? You have one of the biggest accounting firms in Liberia. You're doing taxes for some of the biggest firms in our country. And you say, you know what? I have a branch here in St. Paul. I want to open one in Corway, which is where I'm from. So you have to open one there, right? So you go to the bank, you say, I want $1 million, or not even million, I want $500,000 loan. They say, okay. They take your collateral, whether your business assets or you end up pulling up your house as a collateral. They take that, they give you the $500,000 loan. Even if they give it to you for a year, 2, 3, 4, or 5, you know what you just did? That contract, that loan agreement that you just signed, do you know what you just did? You just created money that bank can take that loan agreement, where they lend to you at whatever rate, and they got it cheap from the central bank. They can now go to the central bank and get that entire money. You being able to now open another Ale Bernard International in Corway. You're hiring people there, but you just created money that the central bank has to print. That $500,000 loan, right? That was money that wasn't there. They have to print it. Now multiply that over 500,000 businesses in Liberia, 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. This is how you grow that economy. But because none of this identity thing is there, so the banks look at the risk and they look at the property risk where you can buy property and I'll come and say, you're not the rightful owner for that property. So they limit the time they want to be exposed to you.
Right.
That is the linkage between those two.
Right.
If you want to look at it, how it can actually be used to grow the economy. That's one of the biggest part of it. It will solve the whole liquidity problem in Liberia, and that economic impact will help create businesses in Liberia and bring jobs in our country to grow this budget over a billion or 2 billion trajectory.
So thank you, Gabriel. There are a few comments that I want to highlight here so that we can respond to them. All right. I kept bringing them on, but so profiling is saying no, it's not based on who knows you. There's a system, and yes, there may be some challenges, but you can just refute. You can't just refute based on lack of information.
But those challenges that we are talking about,
profiling also goes. I told you I got 4 comments. There is an existing system, but with biometric, we can augment it and improve delivery across the country. There's another one here. Just take note, and then you will respond to this one. Caesar Morris say it is true. Liberians do have ID system in the banking sector that ID everybody. The system tracks every borrower uniquely. And the 4th one that I want to mention here, the 4th one is an identity system will also help to expand the economy. Banks are giving heavy interest rates in Liberia to entrepreneurs because there is not a FICO scoring system that will allow the banks to be able to identify credit borrowers. So, yes, what I was trying to do was to play the devil advocate in terms of getting the meat out of you in aligning the identity, the benefit of the identity system. I know that, for example, if we had, as an auditor, as an accountant, if we had or even before I even come to the investigation side, just as an accountant or as a fiscal person, if we had a unique identification system to every individual, the issue of ghost name on payroll will be resolved.
Exactly.
Because we know that whether you John Kessley 1, John Kessley 2, you will have your unique identification number.
Exactly.
That tells you that John Kessley should not appear on this payroll twice. Should not appear on another payroll in Banga.
Exactly.
Another payroll in Nima County. I know that. I just wanted you to draw, the parallel in terms of the benefit that it comes along, and so maybe you can go to some of these questions that we put on the place.
But let me just when normally when we think of banks, we think about the brick and mortar bank you walk in and stuff like that. There are banks in America that don't even have depositors. They're basically credit banks.
Yeah.
They issue credit cards to people. Okay. Oh man, one of them just got sold the other day. A bank called Olo Bank, or all it did was issue credit cards to high-risk borrowers. Another bank called Ally Bank wanted to get into the retail credit business and bought them. But Olo Bank wasn't a bank you could walk into and say, I'm depositing my money there. All they did was offer you credit. You follow what I'm saying? So, yeah. but that's based on the ability to uniquely identify people. You know how many people sit around America and get an offer? Just call their number, put this code in, and we'll give you a $5,000 credit card. They don't know you.
It's in the mail every day.
Right, but you see what I'm saying? But that invitation is based on the fact that they have identified you and they have to identify a credit profile for you. You follow what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And every time they do that, the gentleman talked about liquidity. So now they've just given you $5,000. Suppose they give 5,000 people $5,000.
So Josh, how will you speak to this comments from Profile in Liberia?
My point is,
Which one?
Profiling Liberia has just said that he has just said that the limitation of the banking system, the biometrics to improve the system. That's what he said.
Right.
It's limited.
Maybe he felt we're disagreeing that they're not. Look, data can exist, okay? But we all know that collection of data, if you don't have things that validate those inputs there, they're sometimes meaningless when you want to do any further analysis with it. So they may have a database of everybody who now borrow in Liberia. That's possible.
Right.
But can they actually say that those people are not gaming the system with multiple names or using property with multiple banks or other things, like multiple people have the same collateral? So yes, it can be improved. Let's agree there's some system existing, but it doesn't serve the purpose for which such a foundation
that we need to grow the economy.
Exactly. It doesn't happen
point
like
we're
that.
making here. Yeah.
So he agrees.
What we're talking about here is scale. Talking about scaling.
Yeah.
So if all the banks in Liberia, all of them, if you look at all of the outstanding loans, do you think they have 100,000 outstanding loans? I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. But you have 4.5 or 5 million people in your country.
Yep.
So the fact that you don't have 1 million or 2 million loans or credit instruments out there tells me that you're significantly underserving.
Yes, you're leaving a lot of stuff on the table.
And that's another problem with the banks in Liberia, the way we do banking. It is like, when I mean they are just deposit taking institution, but in terms of innovation, to innovate, to create product that actually serves the needs for consumer and businesses in our country, they don't do that. And that's part of the reason why most of them are insolvent. Like LBDI, the last time LBDI put out a balance sheet was in 2018. And when we took a look at it, if a lot of people, I always say that if a lot of people know how to read balance sheet, they would have done a bank run on that bank and take all their money out and ran away. But they don't know that,
But we just mentioned that. That's why the government subsidizes them.
Right. So they don't put out their balance sheets anymore. They hide it. They take it from the website. So there's no way you can get
because a significant amount of the lending from LBDI goes to government officials.
Right. So they don't put that out anymore. Because if we were to be able to see that, people would do that bank run. Like, I don't want to put my money in a bank that's already, look from a balance sheet perspective, that's already insolvent. So that's from the banking standpoint. When I mean they're insolvent, they're not innovative. This is why the foreign banks like UBA and Echo banks are, really doing well in our country. Yeah.
Yeah. So what one of we have all these different things, but based on the comments and the responses, I think I would kind of bring on Hamilton Zili here, who says that is a great idea if only we have people who are honest and really want their country to develop. The system will be operated by people. In order for the system to work efficiently and effectively, the people need to exhibit the requisite behavior that will make it work.
Look, behavior is something that's relative. Most people, probably 99% of the people in the world, if they put in an opportunity where they can steal, they will steal.
Yep.
So you can just talk about
and they will not get caught. Me. You put me in a situation, you said, look, you in charge of this thing, nobody's going to ask you anything. You can steal and nobody will know. I'm stealing.
You will steal. So
I'm stealing.
Got to have.
I'm telling you right now, I'm stealing and I'm stealing the hell out of it because I will not get caught. What you have to do is you have to build systems that impose integrity on people.
Yes.
Okay? where
So-
there are
so
things that
George-
you cannot
let's
do
let
even
George
if
finish,
you
and I
want to
think
do
Ava
it.
have a statement that you want to make as well. So
Okay.
let George land and then Ava come in.
No,
Yes.
well, I start to fire George also. He can
You
just-
have to build the systems that allow that does not allow people to do the things you're talking about. I will give you the simplest example. When I came to the United States, I used to work the night shift at a gas station. The only way at that time, this was in the 1980s, in order for somebody to buy gas, they had to give me the cash. And I had to go and pump the gas. You follow what I'm saying? At the end of the day, I had to account for this is how many gallons of gas we sold, and this is the money I collected. But I was handling cash. Today, 97.4% of all gas purchases are done by credit card.
Yeah.
Nobody's handling cash.
Hardly.
So even if you want to steal, the money's not coming to your hands.
Ava.
Yeah, you know, that's the key thing, limiting access, direct access to touching money. And that's why technology and billing systems are so important, because when you have those, you don't got to worry about whether I trust them or I don't trust them, man. You know that man was or they say 10 containers in here, $1,000 per container. At the end of the day, so it'll be 10,000. You're expecting 10,000 automatically in our bank account, and people not paying necessarily by cash. And even if they pay by cash, it's still expected. So you got a clear system to check. When you got all these different nuances, and you don't have any system to really check or provide an alert on what's expected, what's not expected, you got problems.
Yeah. If
So
I
Take Kenya
if I
for
may,
example.
okay. If I may play a devil
Kenya had a
advocate.
problem, right? Kenya had a problem with the visa system, where people would pay for the visa at the airport when they arrive, and they would have to pay cash, more than likely in foreign currency, because you just came, you need a visa. So let's say the visa costs $100, but everybody who comes is giving somebody $100 in cash.
So George,
Hold on, Alex. After they ran the analysis, you know what they found out? That the number of people coming into the country as visitors was not equal to the amount of money they were collecting. So you know what Kenya did? They put the whole visa system online.
Gabriel,
You purchase the visa if you purchase the visa online, when you get there, all you got to do is show the paper. They've already collected the money. There's no money for the visa agent to collect.
Okay, Gabriel, before you come in and play the devil's advocate, let me take out the fiscal hat and wear the system hat. When I wear my system hat, this is what Hamilton Zilli is saying to me. Hamilton Zilli is supporting what we said from last Saturday and up to date, right? Hamilton Zilli is saying when people put the system in and they respect the system will work. Last Saturday, we were talking about the National Identification Registries law, that the the NIRL was charged with the responsibility of ensuring that the biometric system was there. There was one system that all the other entities can feed on.
Right.
Now, today we having National Election Commission trying to do biometric. We having Legis trying to do something else. I mean, of course, Legis are different situation. We having Liberia Business Registry doing something else. We having all these different sides. We don't have it. We have Ministry of Finance using the internal audit system to do all these repeated payroll audit, goes name over and over, and spending money in that. If we are allowed the National Identification Registry to do its job, that all the other entities will feed on, we will have a biometric system, right? If we provided the tools and the funding because we identify that because of the procurement, the corruption embedded into the procurement and all that stuff, that's why everybody else is fighting to do biometric.
Yeah.
Okay, instead of giving the NIR, that's what I hear Hamilton Zilli is saying.
Yeah, and what I wanted to add to what he's saying as well. Listen, I work in bank, and banks are one of the most like that when you hear systems in place to curb stealing. we have those like at the top notch level. However, I do agree with him. In addition to that, you need every bank has an ethic or a line you can call to report. If you and I work together, Ava, and I see you doing something illegally in the bank, there's a line there there's a phone line I can call to report you.
Yes, you have a
Anonymous, right?
responsibility to do that.
That is in addition to the system we have in place, right? So I agree with him when he said the behavior, like behavior is a big part of advancing an economy. He's right. In addition to those systems we want to put in place, you need people with good behavior there too, that are what we call gatekeeper, that are stakeholders to those systems, and make sure that you and I are doing the right thing. George is doing the right thing. Alex is doing the right thing. In addition to those systems we have in place, still with all the systems that banks have in place, there are lines, ethics line, and lines you can call to report things anonymously if you see somebody doing things outside of those behaviors. So I do agree. You need people in place who have the right mindset, the right behavior to want to see a system work that was put in place, as opposed to people who just, are just, are there to game the system and get away with it. Yeah.
But here's the other thing. To add to what you're saying, because all of the money that people get, it's easy enough to notice people's spending habits. So for example, I run a business and I have two bank accounts, two main business bank accounts. Sometimes, and the two banks, they're right across the street from each other. I can go to this one and walk to the other one. Sometimes I need to transfer money. I don't transfer to Bank A and withdraw $8,000 and go to Bank B and deposit the $8,000. I have to transfer that money electronically. If I show up tomorrow at Bank A with $12,000 in cash deposits, when I set up my business, it wasn't a business that took those kind of cash deposits. Somebody is going to flag my account and say, wait a minute, where is this money coming from? Even as a private individual, if you just go and deposit $10,000 in your bank account, they will flag the IRS immediately. Is that not true, guys?
They do, yes.
That is
because
true. That is true.
Because
Sarah Gray has a question for you. Sarah Gray says, Great Exchange, do we or do we not have a unique individual identifier? Question. Everything suggests we do not have any reliable identity system. There are easy instances of fraud, says that. Where do we start, Mr. Family?
Okay, but Cyrus is coming late to the party. That's what we talk about.
Also saying that current data sets are not uniform and not reliable.
Exactly. So one of the things you need to make the data sets uniform, the first thing is, okay, so Cyrus, this conversation started, just let me recap for you. We have the NIR that has a law that says they're the only entity in the country that can create biometric data.
The National Identification Registry.
Mm-hmm. We have the NEC that is saying they want to give out a contract for $11 million to create biometric voter registration. The argument that we are making is that the NEC, one, has no authority to do this under the law.
Exactly.
Two, the money the NEC is going to be using for biometric voter registration should actually be given to the NIR to do biometric identification. Okay? And so that's why if you have to register 3 million people in the country, Cyrus, for this next election, it means all of a sudden 60% of your population will have biometric IDs. But if that information is only held by the NEC, it's not useful to the rest of the country. It's not useful to the rest of the system, of the people that need to use it. So now you're going to have the NEC with 3 million with biometric data for 3 million Liberians. You're going to still require the NIR by law to produce biometric identifications for 4 million Liberians. Then you're going to have NASCORP, which has to identify every person who contributes to the system and their dependents and beneficiaries. So that's another 2 million people. You have passports. So now, where you should have one set of biometric data, you have 5. And then when you talk about the data not being uniform and reliable, that's exactly what you end up with. Because now you got 5 different pieces of data. So I registered to vote as Kalmo Fambule, but my NIR data lives me as George K. Fambule. Are those 2 different people, or is that one person? How do you know?
One and the same, because you identify.
So we have a bigger problem with we know what we want. These things have been put into place from one administration to the other administration. It's like, when somebody comes in, they start to do their own thing, and they kind of put away everything that was started, everything good that was started. Government is continuity and stuff like that. We tend to put it like, if John Brown takes over an institution, he doesn't continue what was already set in place. He starts doing his own thing. But besides that, we have a bigger problem, and maybe George is not here, but Ava, you can address this.
Okay.
Profiling Liberia is making this statement. The reason why I say we have a bigger problem is this is the I think the first branch of government. It says the legislature is reported to have the highest lending risk due to tenure, and unfortunately, no hard collateral is required. So, in instances where a sitting representative dies during his tenure and still has an active line of credit with any commercial bank, the loan automatically becomes a potential write-off. The house is our problem. Too many bad laws.
That is, anyway, Ava, I'll let you go there.
To me, that's trash. You think lawmakers in the US here don't have collateral for any loan they take? Or anywhere else in the world for that matter? Why is there such an exemption? I mean, I can understand the one where they say they can get their car or whatever, but for them to just have an open line credit, no limit, open line of credit, no limit, and they can just borrow arbitrarily from people, and you say when they die, there's no obligation for the estate to pay. I don't understand what that is. Seriously.
Yeah.
You got to address it in a Labrador context now. We're not in America.
No, but
it's
in
the same thing.
We're not talking about America.
But when it comes to these matters where there's standardization across the world in terms of finances, in terms of how systems should work, there should be no exception for that. We'd like to say Liberia is different.
Exactly.
Liberia is different. We are just an undeveloped country.
No, don't get me wrong. You said you were giving an example of America. So I said, bring it to Liberia.
Okay.
The same estate law applies to Liberia.
The Liberia example is just the same lawmaker. That's part of the impunity and the entitlement they feel. They got to be different from every other citizen. You are a hard-working businessman. You can't get a $50,000 loan or even $20,000 loan to expand your business. But a corrupt lawmaker can go and get a $20,000 loan that he's not even going to pay. What sense? How does the economy move forward?
Let me come in from somebody with inside information. That the first mistake we have, if this is true,
inside information from where? From the legislature or like
from what he's saying now? From what he's from. Oh, when I say inside information, I mean from a banking standpoint.
From a banking perspective, okay.
Right. So if the first statement that he made, the first sentence about the legislature, if they have a highest banking lending risk due to their tenure, if that is something within our banking law, then that's something we have to change. There's a law in banking what we call insider lending. I don't care whether your father owned a bank or this is Mom Musu from down the street. The same rate, we should be lending at the same rate, right? So there's no reason why, because he's a legislator or whoever he is, should have favoritism in terms of the kind of credit that he gets, right?
Well, let me ask you this: why does he have risk? Because you don't have a credit system.
Right. So
you don't have a credit rating system like Joe Munju said. If you had a credit rating system, it wouldn't matter that he was a lawmaker. It would matter if he was paying his debts.
So, right. In addition to what I said, right, and in addition to what George is saying, now, if somebody is a representative and you think this person is a high risk because you're not, there's unfortunately no hard collateral is required, then again it goes back to our banking laws. These things need to be addressed from the fundamental standpoint, right? This and sometimes it befalls me that we have laws on the book that we don't follow them. Like this thing that I talked about earlier, the universal collateral code. This is a universal thing of how to put liens on property and tell you who has first lien. And if the person that have first lien falls off, that means the person in the second place go to the first place. These are universal. And if we're lending money to anyone, even if a 5-year-old or the president of the country, those same rules supposed to apply. You take collateral, I don't care who it is. Now, because he's a president, there might be a little bit of favoritism. We do that in the banking. I will be honest and tell you that. Because I know George, let's say I'm a vice president of the bank. I know George, and George come to borrow from me. I would say, hey, I have a great relationship with George. I know his business for a long time. I've been with him when he's been running this business. As a banker, I will advocate for him. So give him, let's say, 1/4% difference, right? We do that in the banking sector. But to the level at which this is happening in Liberia, this before it is appalling. And this is why.
Let me give you guys a quick example, okay? The youngest member of Congress elected is a 25-year-old kid named Maxwell Alejandro Frost. Look him up and look up the latest news story on him. Guess what happened? This kid just won his election and he came to DC and he needed an apartment. You know why he can't get an apartment? Because he doesn't have good credit. He literally said, I don't have good credit, but I'm an elected member of Congress.
We'll get time for your Congress election.
You understand what I'm saying? So when you tell me that the highest risk people are the people in the legislature, it tells me you don't have a system that filters them out based on their risk.
Right. Exactly.
Look, the guy up, his name is Maxwell Frost.
So
he says now he has to figure out how to get an apartment.
So profiling Liberia, that answers your question, and that is that is some of the problems we have in our country. That the banking laws are first out of order. Forget the house oversees that. So I guess you can say, hey, they have an obligation to change it, but because they're benefiting from it, how people are not following it, so they have no incentives to be able to change that. So that could be the reason why. So it creates this effect where because I'm benefiting from a system, I have no incentives to change it because I will always benefit from it. So that's the reason.
And the reason the legislators can get loans, right, whether you have that identification system or not, it's about who know you.
Right.
I know you and you are a legislator. So I don't even look at the system. I will give you a loan.
Right. How about you have anything to add to that? And maybe we can bring another.
Well, we can move on. We can keep moving.
So what I'm hearing profiling is saying is some of the things that Josh said. Because we don't have an identity system, because we don't have a proper credit rating system that is tied to an identification system, so that everybody in the country, whether you head of state, whether you legislature, whether you whoever, conform to that system. Now you have a situation where banks or financial institutions are implementing lending as they go on.
But with the new law, when it passed, when it will have retirement benefits equal to basically the original benefit, then maybe they can still hold on to that one and be paying the people, right?
In this case, what the legislature, what they do is, because the legislature have a tenure, right? When you are elected for 6 years as a representative. As a senator, you are elected for 9 years. So you know that you are there for 9 years or for 6 years. So that's a 10. So when they give you a loan, they will give you a loan over that period. They also know that I don't know whether they still getting it, but they get this kind of they used to get they get this again. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but they get this what you call it, resettlement benefit package, which is a lump sum amount that is paid to them. All right, and of course, thirdly, again, I don't know. I know for a matter of fact they used to get it. I don't know whether they're still getting it. All newly elected legislators get this used to get this resettlement cash package. All right, and the third thing is because it's guaranteed that salary is coming in, so their loan is tied to the resettlement and the salary coming in. So they open an account at the bank, and their Ministry of Finance, of course, send the money there. The bank take their part, and then they entitled to the rest. So it's like a salaried loan where it's guaranteed by the fact that your salary is coming in.
So
they don't have this credit rating system. They don't have this credit system where, like Gabriel was saying, when the person passes away, then the next lien holder in line takes over, or the estate of that person takes over. So they don't have all these systems. That is what is happening. That's what Profiler is saying.
Let me add this quickly, and then we can move on. Right. So I agree. It's okay to lend to those people. I'm not saying you can lend to them, right? And if you're going to lend to them because it's based on their salary, and this is why, like, it kind of, when we get to this thing, I want to just go on and on. But for the sake of this argument, you have people in the House of Representatives or even in the Senate. Do they even know how banking works in our country? Like, in order to be able to defend something, you have to understand first how it works. And that's my first problem with them. Now, to lend to them is not a problem. If you're going to give somebody, if I'm going to give Ava a loan base because he works at the government, that is no problem. However, those type of loans, we call them cash-based collateral. So if Ava want to borrow, let's say 100,000, you have to have at least 110,000 in a bank to borrow off of it. That means if you don't pay back that money, right? That means if I don't pay back that money, I can go into that and take it. It's called cash-based lending, right? That's what you're supposed to do. Unless it's a credit card where you say it's unsecure, then I will understand. But you cannot.
But that's the same principle behind a secure card.
Right? You cannot just go give somebody money and it's just say because he works at the bank. What if, because he works at the government, what if they get laid off today or tomorrow? How are you going to get your money? Like, you're exposed. But anyway, go ahead, George.
No, I was going to say, the credit union calls that a share loan. They lend you money or they give you a loan based on the fact that you have an equal amount of money in there.
Exactly, right.
You can get a collateral. You can get a what do you call the thing? Credit card, right? You can get a secure credit card where you give them $1,000 and they give you a credit card for $1,000. But that credit card, that $1,000 you gave them is the backstop if you decide not to pay.
Exactly.
So they're not taking a risk with you. But just as he was saying, everybody has a finite lifespan. I'm not lending anybody in Liberia who's 58 years old money for more than 2 years. Okay? Because what's the average lifespan of the Liberian male? 62? 63? So that's a risk you would want to price in.
Right.
Is he even going to survive his term?
All right, I think we can move on. You're muted.
We're winding down on time now. So what I would do at this point is I'll bring in a few comments, the last set of comments. Then we can speak to anybody can speak to any of them. And then so that we can begin to close the show. Gabriel? Is that a way to go?
Yeah, that's fine. Perfectly.
So Joe Manu, I will start with Joe Manu. So there is a two-dimensional solution that requires a public-private partnership The government can introduce national ID system while the private sector can come out with a Liberian version of a FICO system like the one in the US designed for credit rating. Another one is, and I will bring them on, just take note, and then we can close up. I mean, we can address them as we begin to close. The next one is, Sarah says he agree your responses to his earlier comments. In the absence of a current reliable national identifier, is George suggesting that NIR take the role now and have NEC rely on what they collect, notwithstanding 2023 election timeline? Yeah, when you come to school late, that what can happen for true. But yeah, somebody say exactly, Ava, if we don't be honest to the system in Liberia, we will not succeed to build an adequate nation. I will bring them on, then we can. Sarah is saying maybe we should do that. I think he was responding to something. Use the election to leapfrog the citizen identifier system.
And if we have been thinking on these things, and actually I was in a situation with some of our foreign partners where I mentioned to them that putting this biometric system at NEC was not the answer to our identification system. We needed to strengthen NIR. They chose not to listen.
Jimmy Ismail is saying, where is the data to show where credit works best? What has been the result of microloans?
But microloan is the exact thing we're talking about. Why microloans can be hard to really function. One good thing is that I think a lot of the women in Liberia, especially the business women, they are reliable people. Probably because they are the rock of their families and they want to stay in business and do stuff. So the default is not too bad, even though the identification system around it is not that good. And they tend to hold each other responsible, for these things, especially when they have some kind of cooperative organization around the loan process. So they have very good records. But if that identification system could be improved, where they know something, and some of them probably got property or land somewhere that they can leverage to borrow more money, the economy is so much better than just being limited by what they're going through. So microfinance can have a major impact in countries where there's better identification. Microfinance booms big time.
Well, Mama, you get capable and pen to take note. We say you must take note, then you respond later on.
Oh,
okay,
sorry. I thought I was
going.
The last comment is the whole country.
There you go. We want to get
The last comment is the whole country is okay. It kills me in hearing this kind of behavior of these Liberian so-called leaders. Our country needs. Okay, so let go
back to the first.
Let's go to the comments as you took note. So
yeah, let me. I took note, and let me deal with Cyrus's question, please.
Okay.
So Cyrus, let me try to lay out. Okay.
Okay.
There is a difference between identification and registration.
Yes.
Okay. And we need to establish that they are not the same. And licensing. If an identification simply identifies a person, it says this is who you are. A registration allows you to perform certain functions within the parameters of that entity that you are dealing with. So even though you are identified by your social security number as Cyrus Gray, you still must get that identification does not license you to drive.
Or to be a project manager.
You have to get a driver's license that says Cyrus has done everything that we require somebody to do to allow him to drive. It is quite the same for voting. Okay? The voter registration simply says that we have identified Cyrus Gray, or the government has identified the individual Cyrus Gray, and the voter roll is going to register him to vote at number 6 precinct in Montserrado County. That is what the NEC is supposed to be doing, to create the voter roll. So we need to be able to understand that what the NEC is doing with biometric what they call biometric voter registration is far outside the scope of what they are supposed to do. They are not the ones who are supposed to be identifying who votes. I mean, who the individual is. That is the function of the NIR. Just like it is the function of the NIR to provide the identification for somebody who wants a passport. Okay, just like it's the job of the NIR to identify a student who is going to the University of Liberia, that person will still get a University of Liberia registration card that allows them to function as a student at the university. Simply getting a national ID card doesn't mean you're a student at the university. So the point is that the number of voters that you have is a subset of the people, of all of the people who are identified in the country.
Yeah.
So why are you performing this task multiple times?
At extreme cost, because the cost already inflated.
Isaac, you have something to add based on the question, the comments?
I think George addressed it. If Sarah's got other reservations, let him post it quick, then we can address it. But I think George basically...
No. Sarah's only reservation, he said you were watching football, he said sorry.
So
yeah, Gabriel, I think we can wind down now. But there
was also another question by Joe Monu.
Okay.
About us having it needs to be, yes, and I agree. It needs to be a multi-faceted system, but the identification piece comes from the government.
Yeah.
They're the only one that can make the identification. Once that piece is solid, you can have private agencies who can set themselves up as credit rating agencies.
Right, and we got several of them here in the U.S. Maybe we need one in Liberia, but you can respect some more. It's all about data collection.
They're going to get information from the banks. They're going to get information from the what do you call the people named from the car dealerships if they are giving loans, right? They're going to get mortgage information. They're going to get real estate information. But we have to do all of those things. But you need the identity piece. And the government has to do that. And
by way of the government is the National Identification Registry.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Ava.
Back to, I think I answered the one that was in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, but the two I mean the whole FICO system is important. That's how you rate people, and that serves the opening for so many other things. If people, information are there, the unique identifier is there, the different transaction activities is there. There's a scoring system that determines the likelihood of this person actually paying a debt that becomes dependable, based on the consistent and increased accumulation of information and data. Things function right. If you're not paying, a low hard credit can change. You can improve your credit score in 6 months, 8 months based on your payment, your regularity and stuff like that. I've seen where you can mess it up in 6 months, 8 months. So, Monju is right. It's private and public. A lot of things.
Okay. So Cyrus came back and said that I agree, George. So itself, we are behind the curve. The NIR has insufficient material from which the NEC should do the registration. No, Cyrus. No. The NEC shouldn't be doing it at all. The money that you would use for the NIR, why is it being used by the NEC?
Exactly. And if you could find that money for them, why you didn't find it for them?
Why you didn't find it? So the money, you take the money that the NEC has to do registration with, and you transfer that money to the NIR and let them do the identification piece of it.
Okay. Doesn't it sound like our friend who said the NIR ain't got leadership or they ain't got grammar or
right? The NIR needs to be standing up for themselves. No.
How is that?
The law says only the NIR can do this.
Yeah. Can we bring?
And you're saying, comment? But let me just finish. And you are saying, but if you read the piece that I wrote a couple of weeks ago that had Alice and them invite me to the show, this is exactly what they say. It's urgent. We are desperate, so let's forget about what the law actually says and let's just let the NEC do it. Cyrus, the point of the matter is, and everybody on this who is listening understands that the way the identification data needs to be used and exposed to different interfaces. The NEC doesn't have that role.
Exactly. Yeah.
They don't have that role. The NEC is not responsible to provide identification for banking. They're not responsible to provide identification for ID for university. That's not their job. So all of this data that the NEC is going to collect is only going to be used once every 3 years.
Yeah. Can we answer Jimmy Eastman and then we land and then we wrap up? Jimmy Eastman.
Okay, what Jimmy say?
Yeah, put it there. Put it there.
I think you.
You talk about microloans.
All right. So where is he?
Oh yeah, I think I touched on that briefly. But yeah.
Okay. So I think this should be it, right?
Is he talking about in Liberia or where around?
So I think he's looking for, if based on everything we're saying, he's looking for the pathway or playbook for that Liberians can actually follow to become creditworthy. So a playbook. It's pretty much a recommendation.
We just discussed that. If the fundamentals are there, that you can get identification in terms of asset and individuals. Right?
You can get a credit rating system.
We can start to collect data that enables us to determine whether somebody,
is creditworthy or not.
Paying the debt, does they are creditworthy, or somebody defaults on everything, they got no respect for the lenders. Then we can build that system. It's highly possible that we can do it.
Yeah. Okay.
But Cyrus, you can call Isaac and myself after, and we can have this discussion.
So in literally concluding, because we do not have this proper biometric identification system, and which could be tied into a proper credit rating system and everything else, Caesar Murray is saying, he is taking us home by saying that as a result of all this, banks in Liberia lend based on favoritism.
Who know you?
In fact, Jimmy Eastman add on to say that the whole country is based on favoritism.
Yeah.
So
who know you?
Gabriel, once we are closing, I will ask Isaac to give us his summary, his parting comment.
All right. So, like George gave an example before, Mesa Liberian man from Cape Man can just walk to the port dealership, get Social Security, and be able to get any car he wants.
Yeah.
It just shows that there's no favoritism in that system. It's just based on what his credit record has been, and the fact that it can uniquely identify him different from his son who's at the same address and has the same name with him. So when we put these systems in place and we start to collect data around these that build the profile of the individual, it makes a significant difference can you imagine if young Liberians could be afforded first-time home buyer opportunity or first-time credit opportunity where you can come out of college and get $2,000 loan to maybe start a business or to do some stuff? Just imagine if you start building your profile from high school, they got your identifier, your late vacation, joy here and there, you credit from somebody you pay, you credit from some system you pay. So in that way, we build up a body of knowledge around ourselves, our habits and everything, and it determines something. So that is the future for Liberia. So we take lightly in terms of this whole identification process to have disparate systems around that 5 years down the road we say, we got to integrate all of these things or combine them and spend another several $1 million unnecessarily. The government needs to do the right thing, and I don't know how it's progressing right now in terms of the arrangement with NEC and the procurement. We know that one of the most corrupt areas in the country in terms of procurement. We see that with the public works situation are going on right now with what do you call it, people there? I don't know, that East India, whatever that company.
East India.
International.
It's international. Thank you. Now building our IA road that will leave a death trap now for people because they don't have any money. You know, I mean, the way we negotiate things and the way how, because in the institution, you think in this US, you think somebody in a Biden office can call somebody at the Department of Treasury that negotiating something national and just tell them, say, oh, just get a contract to that person like that? I don't think so. So when people who are entitled to their mandate to operate are not being controlled by the president's office, and the president's office is disciplined enough to let people go on merit, the country changes. But if corruption is coming from that office, impunity coming from that office, entitlement coming from that office, nothing will change. So we really do need a system that can check us, an independent system. And that starts with identification of individual assets. That starts with us building around that, at the same time holding each other accountable, especially when it comes to institutions.
Babu, you're strong.
George.
Okay, well, I mean, you know, everybody who knows me knows that for the last 15 years, I've been singing the same song. I'm very grateful that my friend Joe Monju is now right there with me.
I know, right?
We need to put this identification system in place. We need to put a property record system in place. And we need to put in the private industry for credit rating and all of that around it so that we can transition the Liberian economy from a cash economy to a credit economy.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, we can't, I mean, Gabriel, I know you were close to us, but we can't overemphasize this. I will add to what George says. We have to allow the institution to do its work. That is the National Identification Registry. We have to provide it with the tools and the economic resources, the financing to do their work, so that according to its laws, I mean, to develop the biometrics so that everybody else can every other institution can feed off it. Yeah, I know Sarah is saying that, oh, we have election hour on our hand now. How do we do all this? This is what we've been doing from year in, year out.
And
this is what we've been doing from year in, year out. Every time we put ourselves in this bubble, we put our back against the wall, then we want to react. We're just reactionary. But we have a system. I always say that we have laws in Liberia, we have regulations, we have systems in Liberia. We just need to harness this system, let them work. That's why I agree with Profiling Liberia that says that, you know, we need the people to make the system work. You know, that is why you have, you know, legislature having this other, you know, parallel loan system and different thing that is so risky. When you have identification system, you have a credit rating system, you can expand the economy by people having access to credit, by people being identified easily, so that people and people's credit activities can be tracked. People's, you know, everything can be tracked. It allows your economy to grow, you know, and over time. So we can overemphasize the need to support the National Identification Registry and all other institutions to perform their legal jobs.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, thank you for taking the time to spend your Saturday with us, you know, skipping some part of the World Cup. I think this issue is very important, and I think you guys did a good job in terms of looking at it from a fundamental standpoint and looking at it from an economic standpoint, how that can transcend and bring the economy into a different trajectory. So we really do appreciate you for taking the time to continue to have this conversation. You know, to the audience, you know, thank you for staying with us. And hopefully, guys, I hope this is not your last time. Just whenever you have something important to talk about, we're always here. You know, like on the show, we talk everything business, finance, and economics. So the door's already always open to you guys to come back and talk about this topic or any topic related to that as well. So thank you for spending your time with us. And, you know, as I always like to say, we come here, we talk about these things. We're not pro-government or we don't hate government. We're just looking to elevate the conversation into our democracy to bring it a little further better than where we left it. And I think from what you guys has been saying, there are credible people out there. There are people, brilliant mind like you guys out there who wants to do what is needed to bring that country forward. However, what I keep hearing is that there is not the will, the political will to have those things done to that is going to not just benefit a very few people, but benefit everybody. So there's the lack of will that is also there as well. But regardless of that, we know there is, wherever there's will, there's a way. So we want to keep pushing this conversation. And so thank you for coming to spend your Saturday with us. As we always say, regardless of what you think, whether we're pro-government or against the government, or we were in the middle walking a fine line, there's one thing that is a common denominator is the fact that we're all Liberians, and we will always be that. There's nothing that can take that away from us. So thank you for your Saturday, and we will be here next Saturday, same time, same hour, whatever you want to call it. See you next Saturday. Ciao.
Right,
yeah, before you go,
you,
next Saturday will be the next 2 Saturdays will be, I know there's a draft budget out there. We'll be trying to go into the draft budget, next Saturday.
So if you guys want to come back to help us navigate that, you're more than welcome. But that's what we'll
we will have different guests or so, but we'll be discussing the draft budget.
Perfect.
Take care. Thanks to everybody. And
all right, guys.
Everybody.
See you later.
Okay.
We have been on the lobby round.